I'm sure you've heard that saying, caught between a rock and a hard place. Well, I'm caught between the udders and a light plate. There you go. Just had to get that out of the way before I started talking about Where the Crawdads Sing, our latest Southern Gothic fiction novel. Okay, so let's unpack this, shall we? I can't believe I actually finished it, and on time. I finished it on time. I'll go around and around in circles here. And that I was able to watch the movie. So, got it all wrapped up. It was not the easiest thing to do. I had to enlist the help of Audible through part of it. So late at night, I'm reading the book, and a couple of times being able to steal some time away during the day to read the book, but that didn't work out so great. So Audible comes in quite handy while you're doing dishes, that sort of thing. Still have yet to handle the laundry, but nonetheless, I digress, as I always do. So, Where the Crawdads Sing. I was a little reluctant to read this. And to step back a little bit, when I did my poll to see what everybody wanted for the third book for us to tackle, this was neck and neck with Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. And then after I closed the poll and it was time to start filming something, I forgot what I was doing at that point, somebody else voted. I think it was the next day or something. I can't remember exactly, but and it was for Sharp Objects. So, but by then I had already done my toss the book in the air vote, which was odd, I know. So forgive me for that, but I'm prone to such things. So this one won, So I'm glad, but I'm glad that it did. I do want to read Sharp Objects, and I will at some point. Maybe I'll read it together or, with you guys, or maybe I'll just save that for a time where I go over a stack of books and give my general impressions of them. Where the Crawdads Sing was something that seems to be very polarizing. My oldest son even said, "Mom, I can't believe you're reading that. Nobody likes that book." So when I cracked it open to the first page, I was like, "Oh, I know this is going to be painful, isn't it?" But first page, I was pleasantly surprised. It drew me in, and then page after page after page drew me in. So it kept me going. Is it a perfect read? No. And I'm not going to give any spoilers at the beginning of this, so don't worry. I will let you know with a very pronounced spoiler alert when I get to the parts that you may not want to know about right now because you're reading it still, or you haven't finished the movie or what have you. Although the movie, I must say, and the book don't totally line up. But, who's surprised by that, right? The book is beautifully written. She has a way with words. It's very literary leaning. And when I looked at YouTube videos about different reviews and online things, I think I've come to a consensus as to why it's such a split between people loving it and hating it. Just downright despising it, which is, I don't understand, that's very unwarranted. I think it's because it's literary leaning, and because it's been pitched so hard, bestseller, thriller, all of that people go in expecting something and they get disappointed. They expect a thriller. This is not a thriller in the truest sense. It is so not. And let me just say that this is a story of a young woman who starts out the story as a young girl who lives in the marsh, coast of North Carolina, and she is in an abusive situation. Her father is an alcoholic. He's very physically and emotionally abusive to his wife and to his children. He has several children. I think there are 5 of them. I lost count. Mainly I lost count because they started disappearing right at the beginning of the story. So this is not a spoiler. This happens really soon. The main thing is that she's alone. So I'm going to tell you this part where she's not alone. It sets up that they're poor. They live in the marsh. People who live in the marsh are looked down upon by the people that live in town. This is 1950s, roughly. There's some things in the 60s, 1969, so it bounces around in time a little bit, up to 1970. But it starts off with her as a little girl. Her mother leaves because she's so abused. She just packs up a little suitcase and heads off, with the little girl, Kaya, watching her like, Mom, where are you going? And then the next person in the family goes, the oldest son, and then the daughters, and just on and on until finally the child who is closest to Kaya, her older brother, who's just a few years older than her, and she's roughly around 7, I want to say at the time, 7 or 8, somewhere in there, not very old, maybe 8. He leaves also. Now, I have to say that there was a little bit of disbelief here because I've heard of, okay, sorry, hair's everywhere. There was, I know that sometimes there are mothers who leave their children. That is a fact. However, and she was so abused. I don't understand it personally. For my own sake, I'm not in that situation, so I would hope and pray I would never do such a thing, but she did. But the part that was harder to believe was that each family member just kept leaving. This is a little girl, and leaving her with such a monstrous father. And to think that her older siblings weren't close enough to her, especially her older sisters who were teenagers, wouldn't say, okay, Kaya, you're coming with me. I don't get that. I mean, how on earth do they leave a little girl like that? And then I understand maybe the youngest brother because he was so young himself. But I don't understand the older sisters just leaving her like that. But the time frame that this is in, women had an expected role. There was a lot of racism. And they had some wonderful characters, Jumpin' and Mabel, who come to her aid early on, and that I found very heartwarming. Here's the thing. They are a black couple that own a store where people can get some supplies and for their boats and fishing tackle and so forth and so on. And so they take her under their wing when they realize, I don't think anybody's there anymore, especially after the alcoholic father, also leaves her. But the thing is, the author doesn't really flesh them out enough in the story, and I thought that should have been more of the heart of the story, because I understand the author was trying to stress so much of her aloneness, but they were trying so hard to help her. I just felt like she missed an opportunity to bridge the gap, in a sense, to show how it doesn't matter about race. It's all about heart when it comes down to helping one another and when someone's in need. And I feel like she kind of missed that opportunity a little bit. The movie actually, this is one of the places where the movie was actually better than the book. The movie went into that more, fleshed it out more, took some liberties with it, but I was fine with those liberties because I liked the direction that went in. As far as the book itself, her coming of age story was full of hardships, but it was also beautiful in the sense that the author had such a beautiful way of pulling you into that world, into that lonely, wild world of the marsh, and actually also put a lot of things at the beginning to help foreshadow what happened at the end, and I'm not going to say that right now of what it was, so don't worry. Overall, I thought this was a good read. It is a slow burn, okay? I generally don't like slow burns. I like literary fiction to an extent. Actually, I say that. What I mean by extent is upmarket, if you're familiar with that term. I like it to kind of be in the middle between commercial and literary, because a lot of literary fiction to me is just somebody all up in the character's head and on and on and on about how they're feeling. And that is a little tedious to me when it doesn't have some action, some true plot movement forward. I like a faster pace. This pacing has been, the pacing of this book has been accused of being too slow, too boring. I didn't find the book boring, and I think one of the reasons, well, the main reason I didn't find it boring is, oddly enough, I can relate. I felt like I can relate to it. I grew up born in Georgia. I've lived in South Carolina. I've lived in North Carolina. I have in the mountains of North Carolina, and I have family that lives on the coast of North Carolina. So I feel like I know the area that she's, to some extent, of what she's doing. Now, I didn't go to the marsh area, so I can't say for that. And I didn't live in the 1950s. Close enough, but I did not. So I can't really say much about how she worded things as far as their dialogue and so forth. I can't say. Or how people did or did not get along. I can't say that either. But I can say that for a good portion of my childhood, I lived in the woods of rural Georgia, pretty ostracized, with an alcoholic father, and spent a lot of time in the woods building forts and trails and avoiding snakes and seeing snakes and all kinds of different things, pretending to be different characters in history, on and on.